The Australian government has just imposed new financial sanctions and travel bans against 14 individuals responsible for silencing political expression in Russia. The new sanctions are also linked to the invasion of Ukraine. Now, one Russian politician who's fallen victim to the Putin regime's repression is Leonid Volkov, a close ally and colleague of the late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. And he joins me now in the studio. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for
appreciate your time. Now, earlier this year, you were sentenced by a Russian military court to 18 years in jail for spreading fake news about the war in Ukraine, among other things. What's your response to these convictions?
On one hand, I'm laughing at this. I mean, okay, they've sentenced me to 18 years. I'm obviously serving those 18 years, counting minutes. But on the other hand, they hand the same sentences to people in Russia, which are not sentenced in absentia, but they're sentenced to this like 15, 20, 25 years, really for likes on social media, for saying something that contradicts the official version of what happens in Ukraine. Like, my conviction is about like spreading disinformation and fake news about the war. And this means calling this war a war and not special military operation, as Putin put it.
Yes. Now, you were also attacked last year outside your home in Lithuania. It was a brutal attack. And can you confirm that these were Russian agents involved?
Russian agents were involved. It was unfortunately a more complicated combination. So Russian government agencies also did it in collaboration with some oligarchs in exile, which means that they are quite sophisticated in arranging the attack, and that's true that no of the members of the Russian opposition can really feel safe even abroad.
Yes. So on that, do you constantly fear for your safety, whether you are in Lithuania or even if you are here in Australia?
Well, I read a lot about giant spiders and snakes and everything, which you can meet in Australia, but no, honestly not. I mean, I prefer, and I know that my colleagues also, just not to think about it. I mean, if you live with constant fear, you can't really act effectively, and that's what Putin wants, and we don't want to do anything that would please him.
Do you believe Russian agents do operate here? They might be following you, they know of your whereabouts.
You have the Russian embassy, you have Russian trolls, you have Russian cyber attacks, Russian disinformation on the internet, you have Russian agents in this country, spies and everything. They are very good at that. I mean, that's Putin's background. He's a KGB guy. KGB. That's what he was trained to do. That's his DNA. And he also has learned this lesson that it costs him not much money, actually, to create this political turbulence abroad. Look, whom he funds in Europe. That's not based on their political affiliation. He funds extreme right parties, extreme left parties, extreme whatever. Just everyone who is ready to, spread this feeling of instability, turbulence, something like this, create conflicts, whatever. They are very good at that. That's their job.
Now, Australia has sanctioned, 14 individuals. You would have seen the statement from our foreign minister. But I'm interested to know, what is the state of politics in Russia at the moment? You mentioned many of your peers who oppose the Putin regime are in prison for the smallest of crimes. As far as the everyday Russian is concerned, how popular is Vladimir Putin? How much support does he have across the country?
Can you ask a person in the street or in a phone poll, do you support Vladimir Putin? Do you support war? You can't do it because your respondent perfectly knows that he will go to prison, straight to prison for 15 years for delivering a wrong answer. Polling, opinion research doesn't really work in a dictatorship the way it works in democracy.
Yeah, of course it doesn't, but what do you believe?
I believe that Putin is still quite popular. My my assessment, based on the research that we are doing, and we are doing a lot of research asking indirect question, is that Putin's popularity is somewhere around 45-50%, which is far from the official 87, but it's still a lot. That's true. There are still people who have fallen in love with him and support him. But Putin's war is extremely unpopular. We have solid proof for that. We do a lot of research, a lot of calculations that the vast majority of Russians want this war to stop. And so the continuation of the war actually destroys Putin's approval rating, because it's a rare case when he acts against the will of the majority of population.
Yeah, so Australia has put even more sanctions, among many others, against the Putin regime. Do these sanctions help at all?
The last round of sanctions that Foreign Minister Penny Wong announced yesterday, and it was, of course, no coincidence, because yesterday Yulia Navalny, the video of the late Alexei Navalny, the leader of Russian opposition, visited Canberra, and I was there as her chief of staff also. We had a very good meeting with Foreign Minister Wong and with Prime Minister Albanese, and this new sanctions package was actually passed in connection to Yulia's visit, and it was based on the investigations conducted by our Anti-Corruption Foundation, which was founded by Alexei Navalny. So they are very good because they're targeted personal sanctions against Putin's friends, against his inner circle, against people who no one likes. The situation is more complicated, though, with sectoral sanctions against Russian economy, because if such sanctions are adopted, Putin's propaganda uses it very well. They say, okay, look, the West is against us. They're against Russia. So we have to unite. We have to support our leader. We have nowhere to go because, the whole world is against us. So they use it a little bit to create this rally around the flag effect. But personal sanctions are perfect because no one likes those, government officials, oligarchs, Putin's friends, and so on. And sanction them, Australian government, actually creates a lot of sympathy towards Australia for doing this. So it's a very good job.
Okay. Now you worked very closely with Alexei Navalny. What was going through your mind when you found out that he had died in that prison?
He was
Russia?
Murdered in prison on Vladimir Putin's order. I insist that we have to use word murdered rather than died. It happened on February 16th, 2024. I was in Munich for this famous Munich Security Conference, the most important event in international security, also together with Yulia Navalny when this news broke. And I think it was no coincidence, because it was in Munich where Putin first pronounced his famous speech in 2007, saying out loud about the end of the unipolar world, and that Russia has to be respected again, is raising to become superpower again, etc. So it was a terrible shock. It was a hope was destroyed, because of course for millions of Russians, Alexei was a symbol of hope for the better future, for better Russia, for democratic Russia. He was already for 3.5 years in prison, in torture conditions. And still he was able to keep such a moral strength that Putin hated it. And it was so clear that he is so great, and Putin is so small of a man that actually, at the end of the day, Putin decided to kill him. And it was devastating. It's still a bleeding hole in everyone's heart. But also then, on the same day, Yulia came to stage of this Munich Security Conference and actually announced that she will continue the fight, she will continue the cause of her husband. And it was, of course, a huge inspiration and new source of hope for millions of people who just want Russia to become a normal, decent, boring, if I may, European country, which it has to be.
But how do you see that happening, given Alexei's death. He was such a high-profile opposition figure. The others you mentioned are in prison. What hope is there, that you will see perhaps one day free and fair elections?
Well, the hope is that Putin is first of all thinks not immortal, that Putin doesn't have a successor. That Putinism is a very, very, very personalistic dictatorship, all built around Putin himself. He has to take all important decisions. No decision can be made without him. And when he is gone, for whatever reason, because of palace coup or for biological reason, there will be a window of opportunities for us, for democratic movement, for those willing change. And we are trying to spend every day getting prepared to use this window of opportunities in the best possible way.
Yes, and just a final question, Lenin. How do you feel? How does it feel when you see, the red carpet quite literally rolled out for Vladimir Putin in Beijing yesterday, firming up that alliance with China, with Iran, with North Korea? How do you then challenge, the authority of Vladimir Putin when he has so many powerful backers?
Vladimir Putin was in complete isolation just a year ago. Unfortunately, the red carpet in Beijing is not the first red carpet. The first red carpet was in Alaska. And I think it's just a mistake. He's a war criminal, has not a president. The Western leaders should not treat him like an equal. I mean, we can have different opinions about Donald Trump or Keir Starmer or whoever, Anthony Albanese, but they all won very competitive elections. They all fought real fights.
Yes.
Putin never did it. He was always afraid. He always chickened out. He killed and poisoned his political opponents rather than fighting and competing against them. So when the Western leaders recognize him as a legitimate president, as an equal, they diminish themselves. This is a mistake that shouldn't be done. Putin is a mafia boss. He should be treated like a mafia boss. The only valid and efficient way to fight against the mafia is to go after money, to investigate, to interrupt their flow of money, to make the mafia less efficient. And that's what our investigations are focused about, what the personal sanctions are focused on. That's a good strategy. Red carpets don't work. Appeasement of dictators doesn't work.
Okay, Leonid Volkov, really thank you for your time on the program, and really do hope to speak with you in the future.
Thank you so much for the invitation.